We often look back at ancient empires with awe and admiration. Their towering monuments, complex legal systems, and artistic achievements are marvels of human ingenuity. From the Roman Empire to ancient China, from the pharaohs of Egypt to the Persian kings, textbooks have painted these powers as glorious benchmarks of civilization. But beneath the marble columns and golden thrones lies another truth, one far more disturbing and frequently erased from collective memory. Were ancient empires more brutal than we think? And why is there a silence around the horrors they inflicted on millions? To uncover this truth, we must look beyond the propaganda, the statues, and the ancient myths, and listen instead to what was buried, destroyed, or deliberately forgotten. The dark machinery of power. Every empire is built on conquest, and conquest, by its very nature, is violent. Ancient powers didn't simply expand through diplomacy. They razed cities, enslaved populations, and executed dissenters en masse. The Assyrians were notorious for impaling captured enemies. The Romans crucified rebels by the thousands along their roads as a warning to others. Chinese emperors buried alive entire clans suspected of treason, and Aztec priests tore the hearts from living victims atop their temples. These acts were not the exception. They were the standard. Institutionalized cruelty disguised as ritual, justice, or divine will. And yet modern interpretations often brush over these atrocities, choosing to highlight the empire's cultural achievements instead. Why? Erasing the oppressed. History, as they say, is written by the victors, and in ancient times that was truer than ever. Entire civilizations were wiped from memory simply because they were defeated, their languages erased, their monuments destroyed, their stories untold. The Carthaginians, for example, were annihilated by Rome. What we know of them comes almost entirely from Roman authors, their enemies. The same goes for the Gauls, the Thracians, the Scythians. We see them as barbarians. But what if they were simply victims of cultural genocide? The brutality of empire wasn't just physical, it was psychological and systemic. Cultures were absorbed or erased, histories rewritten to justify domination. To remember only the victors is to forget half the truth. Glory versus horror. Take Alexander the Great. He's celebrated as a military genius, a visionary who spread Hellenistic culture across 3 continents. But rarely are we taught about the villages burned in his wake, the mass executions, or the tens of thousands displaced by his ambitions. Or look at the Roman Empire, lauded for its architecture and law. But their economy ran on slavery, and their public entertainment included feeding humans to wild animals. In Egypt, the building of monuments like the pyramids came at the cost of generations of forced labor. Entire lives spent hauling stone in unbearable conditions. Even the Maya, often romanticized as peaceful stargazers, practiced ritual warfare and blood sacrifice to maintain cosmic order. Why do we remember their beauty but not their cruelty? Because our collective memory has been curated by scholars, by governments, and by time itself. The tools of suppression. Ancient rulers understood something crucial. To maintain control, they needed more than armies. They needed narratives. So they built monuments, not for the people, but for power. They commissioned art, wrote laws, and rewrote history to paint themselves as chosen, divine, or infallible. Dissenters were labeled traitors. Rebels were erased from records. Libraries were burned, scrolls destroyed, and oral histories silenced. The first step in empire building was always the control of information. And this legacy of suppression continues to this day in how we view ancient history. We've inherited a version of the past designed to flatter empire, not question it. What don't they want us to remember? The uncomfortable truth is this: many of the principles we praise, order, law, unity, were born in blood. Ancient empires, much like modern ones, justified cruelty in the name of progress. And the stories of those who resisted, the indigenous, the rebels, the forgotten, were buried with them. They don't want us to remember the horrors because doing so challenges the legitimacy of empire itself. It questions the notion that power must come at a cost. It reminds us that for every golden age, there were generations of darkness. And perhaps most dangerous of all, it teaches us to be skeptical of the narratives we're handed today. The modern mirror. If this feels eerily familiar, it's because the echoes of ancient brutality still ripple through our world. Modern governments still erase the inconvenient. Modern empires still justify violence in the name of peace. Propaganda, suppression, and the rewriting of history didn't vanish with the ancients. They evolved. By confronting the darker truths of ancient empires, we hold up a mirror to our present. We recognize the cycles, we see through the myths, and maybe, just maybe, we stop repeating them. The forgotten must be remembered. This isn't about vilifying the past, it's about reclaiming it. For too long, we've honored the emperors while ignoring their victims. We've memorized their victories, but forgotten their crimes. True history is not a celebration of conquest, it is a tapestry of human experience, woven with threads of both triumph and tragedy. So let us remember the silenced voices. Let us question the legends. Let us uncover what they tried to bury. Only then can we understand the empires of the past and ensure they don't shape the future in silence. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to Before Time Knew for more stories they don't want you to hear.